Ramses I had a very brief reign, and his son Seti I took over as pharaoh. Now this is the Seti I that we've been talking about regarding the Osirion. Anyway, he reigned for about 11 years before he died, and the crown was passed to Ramses II, who was obviously the son of Seti I. And that happened in about 1279 BC, when Ramses was about 24. For the early part of the reign of Ramses II, he focused on building a brand new city, and he was doing lots of building projects, multiple temples, and some very significant statues and gigantic monuments. I mean, seriously major, massive building projects and statues. They were just of momentous size, and lots of them. This guy was prolific. Then, once he's got his building projects underway, he starts to get stuck into some unpleasant military expeditions, like into Canaan and Phoenicia, Nubia, etc. So, Ramesses the Great is supposed to be the pharaoh of the Bible, the one that chased the Israelites. But this story doesn't hold any water for me, so I will make that a separate episode discussing that. I think we're looking at a different pharaoh altogether. But anyway, let's keep going talking about Ramses. He lived an amazingly long life, dying at about the age of 91 and having celebrated an unprecedented 13 or maybe 14 Sed festivals, more than any other pharaoh. A Sed festival is held after 30 years on the throne, and it's held every 3 years just to prove that the pharaoh is still fit to rule the country. Can't help but think we probably need to reinstate that. That's such a good idea. Anyway, so we're looking at a possible reign length of over 66 years, and this certainly gave him plenty of time to ensure that he left a significant legacy. But even so, the legacy he left was, well, let's say it was larger than life. And how did he do that? Well, some of his legacy wasn't actually his. He had an interesting habit of taking something a previous ruler had done and then stamping his name all over it. Often he would stamp it in a very deep manner so that no one else could ever claim the structures in the same way that he had done. It was fascinating to see examples of this both in Luxor and at Tanis. The depth was amazing. But he came straight after his father Seti and achieved all these amazing things. And his father Seti had started to do some pretty amazing things himself, like the massive temple of Abu Simbel with its gigantic statues. This was actually started off by his father, Seti I, and of course Ramesses the Great. He finished it off and put his name on it. So let's have a quick look at all his building achievements, just so that you can get a good feel for what he did while he was alive. Is the gigantic statue at the Ramesses. It was 17 meters or 56 feet high and weighed over 1,000 tons. When you see it, it's really hard to make out what it is until you kind of stand back from it and realize that it's one gigantic statue. But the fact that these massive projects got underway at this point in time indicates to me that Seti I actually found something interesting in the Osirion. I know it's a massive jump, but there seems to be a lot going on immediately after Seti I finds the Osirion. I'm not just talking about his beautiful building projects. There is something very interesting about his new city, Pi-Ramesses. When it was set up, it included a large number of factories. Yes, you heard me right, factories. So these factories were to make weapons, chariots, items of warfare, and in this he was also prolific. As you might expect with all these weapons, there was also many military campaigns. Ramses II is depicted in this picture charging into battle against tribes of the south of Egypt with his two young sons, Amun-Kukepshep and Pi-Ramesses. And yes, this is the same Pi-Ramesses that I did all those episodes on some time ago. So if you haven't seen those episodes, they're all about this amazing guy because he has some amazing mythology around him. And, well, his body was never found. This is particularly intriguing because in his tomb was a mummy made up of old bull bones, wrapped up like a mummy, made to look like a human body. Oh, and if that's not enough, he's also the very first recognized Egyptologist, and that's because he was digging in old sites, he was doing restorations, he was finding artifacts, and according to the mythology, he was finding some other very interesting things that one could only describe as either magic or high technology. So Ramses II hung out with his dad a lot, Seti I, and learnt a lot from him. And of course he would have spent time in the Osirion with his father. And the person that followed in his footsteps was Merenptah. Merenptah was his son, and he did his own little renovation projects when it came to the Osirion. But more importantly, he was very determined to get back into the Osirion, but Seti I had blocked it up. Obviously, Seti I didn't want anybody else getting in there, but Merenptah managed to get in there. He managed to go through a different way, and obviously he then got on with things for himself. So my question is, what was it that Seti I found in the Osirion? Why did he block it up? And why was Merenptah so determined to get back into the Osirion?